All right, everybody, welcome back. We are live. This is episode number 30 of Calibrated with Scott. I'm Scott, of course, obviously live stream version. Our regular episodes, I think, was up somewhere in the 90s, but now we're looking at 30 for live stream. So over 100 episodes of Calibrated with Scott. I appreciate all of you tuning in and listening. Remember, if you guys have questions for me or my guest today, who I'll bring up in just a second, you are more than welcome to ask those questions through Super Thanks. It's the easiest way you can help support me, support my work, make sure I get back on here every day. And I'm doing this for you guys full time. And if you can't support in that way and you still want your questions asked, there will be a section at the end where you guys can ask questions and I will go through some of them. Just so you know, I don't get to all the questions because there are a lot and I just don't have all the time. So without further ado, I will bring up my guest today, Alex. Alex, how are you doing?
Greetings and salutations, comrades, viewers, and listeners. It is a pleasure to be on as always. You and I have done this for a very long time, and perhaps we can call this an anniversary episode.
Yeah, it's what we've known each other, almost 2 years now?
You make me feel so very old.
No,
Yes.
dude, it's crazy. I was a different young man back then. We're gonna just go straight to the map today because obviously, by the name of the live stream, we have some updates to cover. So let's head over there real fast. Obviously, here's the map of Ukraine. We have reports of the biggest news today is probably going to be Ianiski. Right now, we do not have confirmation, but I have adjusted the map, and there are reports that the Ukrainians have retreated out of Ianiski back towards Chasiv Yar, perhaps to positions back in these fields right here along the canal. But this is bad news for KresnoHifa. It's bad news for this high ground position, which the Russians might have already captured. It's unknown at the time, but there is a strong fortification on the high ground right here that overlooks Ianiski. If that falls, the Russians will have a platform to begin operations towards Chasiv Yar proper. So big deal with this falling. The Ukrainians have been fighting tooth and nail for this locale, been dealing with glide bombs excessively and artillery for a good amount of time. So like heavy artillery barrages. So this place is hell on earth. Ukrainian sources are the ones who are talking about a retreat, a withdrawal from Ianiski. Russian sources are saying, hold your horses, as they usually do. The Russian sources claim that cleansing, which just means basically clearing door to door, has been completed in the center part of the town. There's probably still some cleaning to do in this industrial area and perhaps in this most western part of town. But according to Ukrainian sources, the Russians are now in full control. According to Russian sources, they're in control of most of the town and working on the last bits of the town. So that's the big news coming out today. let's see, head down here to Avdiivka. If you guys remember, this was the area where we have seen probably the highest intensity of fighting between the Ukrainians and the Russians. The Ukrainians are viciously counterattacking here with everything that they have. They have the 47th Brigade here with the Abrams, the Bradleys, which we've seen a good number of those lost in Berdichi here. The Ukrainians are fighting with everything. They brought up their air defense. Here we can see this is the Patriot, where the Patriot was destroyed, trying to help defend the airspace around Avdiivka, preventing glide bombs. We've seen multiple other air defense systems and large long-range artillery pieces, mostly SPGs, like Caesar, Archer, Crab, all of those different kind of artillery pieces being destroyed in this area, all in support of this Avdiivka operation. There does not seem to be a very particularly strong line of defense behind Avdiivka, so the Ukrainians are throwing everything they have at it. I have updated the controlled territory here. You can see most of Orlivka is under Russian control, except this tiny little housing area, which is an extension basically of Semenkivka. We don't know what the exact fate of this area is, whether it's under Russian or Ukrainian control. It's probably not under Ukrainian control. It might be in the gray zone. The Russians have also pushed up along this reservoir, so they have a good defensive barrier here to stop Ukrainian counterattacks. And down here in Tonenke, the situation has developed that the Russians are now in control of this small industrial area. And this part of the town is also in the gray zone, likely captured now by the Russians. We just do not have a geolocation, so I have not updated the map. And Ukrainian counterattacks are always likely. You know, that this is something that regularly happens. So this part of the map has not changed, but it could change in the coming days. We also have reports that the Russians have reached the border, the administrative border of Simkivka. I believe that is probably right in here somewhere. Potentially this tree line is what they're considering that. Remember, Simkivka is basically one little road. It's not like a town. So reaching its administrative borders can mean a number of different things. Up here in Berdichi, we do have a Russian advance along this road up to this reservoir. And now it's looking like this entire area has fallen under Russian control. So this will probably be turning green in the coming days. The Ukrainians are reporting hell on earth here. They don't have a strong established defense line. It's just the best that they have. And it's being bombed and shelled. And the Russians have no shortage of reserves. And they're putting an immense amount of pressure on this entire line. I expect this line to fall probably within the next week or two at the most. And then the Russians will start progressing towards Umansk and back into the rear of the Ukrainian defense. So this is going to be an area to watch very closely, because I am concerned that the AFU does not have anything back here ready to go, because they would have just invested those Abrams, those Bradleys, all of that air defense on another line further back, not wasted it on Berdichi. So down here in Prvomaiske, we have a rather substantial Russian advance just because of what it means. Obviously, this is not some huge plot of territory right here captured, but the Russians did move across this embankment, this dam sort of in this reservoir, and have captured this gas station, which is a fortified area. This now means that the Ukrainians have likely withdrawn from the entire western portion or the eastern portion of the town to the west. It is also not great news for Ukrainian defensive fortifications down here and towards Novelske. So we could see some rapid Russian advance in this area with the fall of Prvomaiske, which would then open up the door to the northern flank of KresnoHifa. Remember, the Russians are moving really, really strong in the south, and they're probably going to keep progressing. I said recently in a prediction, watch this southern Donetsk area. I've actually been saying it for a couple months. I really think that this is the goal right now for the Russians. Obviously, they're going to continue putting pressure all over the map. Bielorivka, Ivanivsky, Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar, up here in the north. My dog can't get comfortable. She's scraping out of bed. Lay down, Sam. All right. Moving down now to KresnoHifa. We don't have any updates. but there's still a lot of fighting going on in this area, and we've seen a ton of Fab 1500s being dropped on this industrial zone. So lots of damage is being done. I think that this area is going to become the next hotspot for Ukraine very, very quicker than Chasiv Yar, quicker than what other towns are possibly Kupiansk, quicker than Kupiansk, probably way quicker than Seversk. Expect KresnoHifa to be dealt with because, again, this is a strong defensive position. Once this defensive line is compromised, the Ukrainians just do not have as much back here. And as each one of these defensive lines, like Avdiivka, Marinka, as each one falls, you can see how the Ukrainians have to invest more and more and more into their defense in these areas, which takes away from defense of other areas. The Russians then break through in those areas, and it's just this snowball effect, sort of. We have another expansion by the Russians to the northwest of Marinka. There was an armored assault that pushed through this field, ended up capturing this fortified tree line right here that the Ukrainians have a trench line in, and that gives them good position to move further up and out onto this reservoir, which I had said is probably the Russian goal in the short term, is to get on this defensive line that they can hold very easily. Ukrainian counterattacks become next to impossible because they'd have to be like pushed through these little tight corridors, and then focus on KresnoHifa from the north and the south. That's what I think is going to happen. We'll see how that plays out. And then, of course, the Russians are going to continue pushing up the settlement as well as to the south right here. I just saw a video today of Fab 250s landing on this tree line. So expect some Russian progress probably in this area in the coming days. And again, with this, always be aware of what the Russians are doing. They're pushing out along this high ground, securing this entire elevated territory right here to then begin operations on Konstantinivka, Antonivka, all the way back over here. So yeah, that's this area. I expect a good amount of movement here soon. Once the line breaks, it's going to be incredibly difficult to stabilize, just like we're seeing with Avdiivka. All right, I think that's the majority of the map updates. We can get
There's the south as well.
Huh?
There's the south as well.
In Rabitny?
Yeah, good old
Yeah, I haven't mapped it because I haven't seen the actual evidence for this. But Syriac did claim that something, so I'll add it to my map just so you guys can see. Something like this has been captured by the Russians in the southern part of Rabitny. Basically, what they had done earlier before the Ukrainian counterattack that pushed them out of this salient. So I'll put it in purple right now. I'm pretty sure it has happened. I just have not seen the actual footage of the Russian assault. I have not geolocated it yet, so I'm not going to add it to my map. But yes, half of Rabitny is now under Russian control, according to numerous sources, and the entire line of defense is now back under Russian control. And all in all, this Ukrainian counteroffensive is slowly disappearing. They have very, very little left, right? 4 miles maybe, which is like 10 kilometers. So
something like that, yeah.
Yep. So more progress everywhere. The Ukrainian counterattacks seem to have abated. They really did go all in, it appears, with their final amount of reserves. They have injected them into the battle for the backside of Avdiivka, and it looks like the Russians are now back on the initiative and have basically thwarted this attack. Let me see this. Crypto assets for legal trade settlement thoughts. Listen, this is probably a very good question for somebody else, and I could point you in the right direction. I am not. I'm not a big trade guy, but I don't see why crypto would be an issue for trade settlement. Are you talking about like international trade settlements? Because like anything outside of SWIFT, it would be beneficial for numerous countries, right? But I think that the Russians are going to produce a counter system to SWIFT that's going to basically do the same thing that this allows. But I mean, crypto is one of the last untouched or unregulated currencies. So let's see. Seems like Russia is taking land much faster than most thought. Yeah, I think that what's really happening now is you're starting to see that the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian military, the Ukrainian population is really beginning to hurt in terms of overall everything. I mean, the Ukrainian military is obviously having manpower, ammunition issues. The West is wholly fatigued from this conflict. They can't keep going on in this direction. There's the Israel is likely to invade both Rafah and probably southern Lebanon in the coming months. They've already said so. Their war cabinet met the other night. So I would not be surprised if we see that very soon. The U.S. is getting pulled in a number of different directions. And I think the replacement of Victoria Nuland, whether she left or was replaced, is a very clear sign of the U.S.'s intentions towards Ukraine, the U.S.'s intentions towards China in the future, which is the way that they're heading. And yeah, so Ukraine is just going to continuously get put down. The population is beginning to see it. The actual Ukrainian population is beginning to see it. The government knows it's happening. Even the military changes that you see the Ukrainian government making right now, right? Zelensky put Syrskyi in charge, which is a no retreat general, hold everything at every cost, do exactly what Zelensky says, because it is imperative right now that the military keeps up the idea that Ukraine is winning, even if it means sacrificing a potential longer Ukrainian delayed defeat in the future by, keeping reserves in reserve for fighting. So I think you're going to continue to see Russia take land a lot faster than what we suspect, and I think they're going to keep doing it until they come to the negotiating table. All right. Thank you for those
in terms of
questions.
other mildly and potentially entertaining news, one of the more interesting and copy Ukrainian channels has reported that a whole crap ton, or several, high command officers were vaporized in Krasnogorovka. Remains to be seen how true and whether or not that is true. But regardless, for some reason they are reporting it, and this is I'm sure you've reposted from them before. As Navini Zasu is one of the stranger
Yeah.
Ukrainian channels. They've been reporting that. Zelensky huffed his own farts, as he is like to do, and has reported that apparently his army is in a better situation than they've ever been in the last couple of months, and that they've completely ground the Russian advance to a complete halt, apparently by throwing Patriot launchers at missiles.
Bro, look at these people. Look at how much they love me. They literally made an account with my name, and then they say, "Where's Grosmo?" Hasn't he been seen in public
Yeah,
since?
he has.
Yeah, I don't even know why people are still saying that. He's literally been seen in public. All right, I have some headlines that I want to cover and talk about, so we will go look at that. All right. Share screen.
I mean, it's basically this is like the crystallization of cope. It's you just get to watch the best sort of reruns of all of their copium. We've had some Gerasimov, we had some Czech ammo, which magically turned from 800,000 to 300,000. They got 45 F-16s. Now that's turned into 6 and 12 pilots. So hey, everything is going wonderfully.
Here we have an article by CBS News about the recent comments that Pope Francis made on Ukraine, saying that they should have the courage to wave the white flag, which, I mean, everybody outside of Ukraine can already see what's happening. Like, everybody is already in this direction. Negotiate while you can, save as much of your country, as your culture, of your people as possible. What you're doing right now is you're just running your head against the wall until you die. Is what a lot of people are saying, and that includes Pope Francis, who is now a Russian asset, confirmed. Pope Francis, Putin propagandist, and full-blown Russian shill. said in an interview that Ukraine, facing a possible defeat, should have the courage to negotiate an end to the war with Russia and not be ashamed to sit at the same table to carry out peace talks. A very rational thing, I would think, right, Alex? If you had to say what the rational choice for Ukraine to do is, it would be to sit down and save as much of their country as possible, right?
I mean, they would have to make concessions, evidently.
Of
Like
course.
you'd be able to save perhaps most of it, but you would have to sacrifice something.
Yeah.
At this point, the logical place to begin negotiations from is the Dnieper line. Pray that we do not ask for Odessa. Say, we'll give you everything to the Dnieper and not an inch more. Please stop here and now. We'll give you your two-language state, etc., etc., etc. But they won't. Firstly, there's a law that prohibits them from even doing it. And on the condition, well, not on the condition, but when Vladimir Vladimirovich is reelected, their own law will continue being in action because it's still a Putin cabinet.
Get a Russian wife quick and move to Russia ASAP. It's not a bad choice.
It's a pretty good plan. You can actually let your children watch the TV. They won't be told about, how I was about to say something terribly rude about homosexual people, but I remember that we are in fact on YouTube,
Yes,
so refrain from
live
that
streaming.
one.
So here, I'm just going to finish this up. Again, another quote from the Pope. I think that the strongest one is the one who looks at the situation, thinks about the people, and has the courage to wave the white flag and negotiate. Francis said, adding that the talks should take place with the help of international powers, which, again, this is very pro-Ukrainian, what he's saying right here. Negotiate, save your country, do what you need to do, because what you're doing right now is not a pro-Ukrainian thing to do. And I don't understand how people cannot see this. Ukraine is not going to win this war. Even if they win and get back to 1999 borders, Ukraine has already lost. And people just will never seem to understand this, who disagree with me on this point. The demographics in Ukraine are horrible, guys. They've already lost 5 to 6 million individuals through immigration, not to mention the ones that went to Russia, which is another good chunk of Ukraine's population, not to mention the ones that are currently dying in the war. So, even if Ukraine was to completely win, those Ukrainians are not coming back from Europe. And you thought it was hard to get money for Ukraine while the Ukraine war was going on. Wait until after the war is over and Ukraine is not the focal point. There's not a national, for the U.S. a national security interest or whatever. There will be no money. Europe is not going to be in a position to continue on supporting Ukraine. So you're talking about Ukraine, even if there is a complete outright victory, still losing at the end of the day. And that's just kind of super unfortunate. And they don't really seem to, and a lot of people don't really seem to understand that. Saving as much of Ukraine as possible as anti-Ukrainian. Somehow, man, they've made it so every single person who says, "Hey, Ukraine, we want you to stay alive, negotiate with the Russians," because negotiating with the Russians is what they've been told is it's the epitome of wrong, right? That is the absolute worst direction you can go, is to negotiate peace, because that just means oppression or something like that, even if most of Ukraine isn't under Russian control and the Ukrainians get, EU membership and all that stuff. I don't know. It's bonkers. It is what it is. What is the minimum Ukraine could accept in settlement? What is the minimum that Ukraine could realistically accept? Is their middle ground? Okay, I want to talk about this. And you are more than welcome to disagree with me.
I'll pitch in.
So I have what I believe was what Ukraine will end up looking like, right? I've done this before. I made a video about this. Here is what I believe that Ukraine will end up looking like.
So the Medvedev map.
So slightly less than the Medvedev map. This is the Medvedev map. This is not wholly what I think it will look like, but I do believe that Poland will gain a large part of Ukraine. I don't know how much of this will go to Poland and how much of this will stay with Ukraine if Ukraine exists. I don't know if Ukraine will exist after this. I just put the rump state in here because it seems like that's the way the Russians are constantly talking about it. Ukraine will be cut off from the sea. Ukraine will be this. Not Ukraine won't exist, but who knows if the state will actually survive all of this? It'll be incredibly difficult to survive all of that. So I could see the Russians stopping where they are right now. If the deal is ripe enough for them that they can honestly claim victory, and not like they need to get out or anything, not like they need a win or anything like that. But this right here is a huge chunk of Ukraine, right? That is Novorossiya. Obviously, Odessa is a big deal. Kharkov is a big deal. That, this, that, and the other. But I believe that ending the war and ending the, all of the sanctions and everything, not that that is a big deal to the Russians anymore, but think about how strong the economy is under sanctions. Imagine if those sanctions are lifted. You have an independently self-sufficient Russia who can now trade with everybody. They get their European trading partners back eventually, this, that, and the other. Like, I could see that definitely being a very good deal, along with the NATO neutrality, the accepting of all of these regions as Russia, including Crimea, and guarantees like a what was the World War I peace deal at the end, the Treaty of Versailles, where they basically limited the size of the German army. I could see something like that, just to the point where Ukraine can never be used against Russia again. And then that would be the biggest win for Ukraine because they would retain all of this that is Ukraine, right? I believe that is something realistic that Putin could take. I don't necessarily think that is. I think it might cause more issues in the future, and it's not really going to be beneficial to the Russians. But again, you are dealing with, in my personal opinion, a Russian government who has made it their stance that once their goals are achieved and met in Ukraine, the war will end. So I don't put it past Putin to take sort of maybe a less than optimal, a less than maximum agreement on the table to end the war, get back on good terms with Europe, step away from this whole World War III rhetoric that's going on right now. I mean, that's crazy in and of itself. And it really just show how desperate Europe is. And that should probably worry Moscow just a little bit. If it was actual threats, I would be less concerned. But now it's looking like they're struggling, scraping the barrel, trying to figure out what they want to do. What I think would be more beneficial for Ukraine in general would be basically everything east of the Dnieper going to Russia, and then this being Ukraine, or this northern part going to, like, right here, going to Poland, obviously Romania, Hungary, they get their little pieces, and then Russia connects with Transnistria. That ends the whole, there's not going to be an isolated pocket of Russians surrounded by an enemy state in Ukraine, enemy state after a surrender that, they're still probably not going to trust them. And you don't want to leave that enclave for NATO to start poking at and putting pressure on Russia in the future if they want. There's multiple ways of looking at this. The one way that I look at it is, or the couple ways that I look at it is, what is best for Ukraine? That would be stopping right now, obviously, dropping ties with most of the West and the parties in the West that are pushing for this aggravation in this region. And then I look at what's best for Europe and what's best for Russia. What's best for Russia is to never have to deal with the Ukraine issue again. And that would be what I basically talked about was, all of Novorossiya, so Odessa, Nikolaev, Kharkov, and then these regions up here that border Russia. So Russia doesn't share a common border with Ukraine, at least traditional Russia. Obviously, this becomes Russia now, but I still think it's a little different. And then Ukraine doesn't join NATO. And then that's a complete victory for Moscow. Now, is that going to happen? Is France, Germany, Poland going to allow that to happen? I don't know. And I think that's where sort of the, improving the deal on the Russian side works by allowing Poland to come in and reclaim their territorial lands. Same with Hungary and same with Romania. So we'll see. What do you think, Alex? What do you see?
I mean, if we start with pausing on current lines, that will never happen. We lay claim to the entirety of the four
Oh, I'm
regions,
sorry. I'm sorry.
including Zaporozhye city itself.
Let me just offer a correction. Outside of maybe Zaporozhye city, I don't know if I agree with that one necessarily.
That will not be negotiated over because that would be a violation of the Russian constitution, and that's not happening.
I'm saying, I'm just going to tell you that the way Zaporozhye is positioned, if there was an unbelievable peace deal that came out, I know it goes against the Russian constitution, but I believe that Zaporozhye would potentially be allowed to stay within the Ukrainian state, not Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, none of the DPR or LPR though. So that
we still have to cross the Dnieper to get to Kherson city. So
technically, but I could see I have less faith in a strong arm Putin to make the whole deal work out.
It would be considered a defeat.
I agree. I do think it would be considered a defeat, but I don't think that the Russians would, or the Russian leadership right now would turn their nose to a deal that involves Ukraine neutrality on NATO, because that was the whole deal.
We've played this game before, though. This is how Chechnya 1 ended, on a quote unquote neutral state on our border, which we then fought a war with again and had to take over entirely.
No,
under Putin's
and listen,
leadership. So this isn't his first rodeo.
I was
through this
saying,
sort of
all I
situation.
was saying, I gave my interpretation of what I think should happen. All I'm saying is, if Ukraine did that right now, I could see, like Doctor Strange when he's going through all the different universes, I could see a universe where Putin accepts a deal that does not include what it should for the Russian nation. I personally believe that is a possibility. Now, realistically, with the current government in Kiev, the current position of Europe, the current position of the United States, and the current communication between all of those parties, I don't see any peace deal coming about at any time soon. And I definitely do not see it looking anything like this. So all I was saying was, the best situation for Ukraine, I could potentially see Russia maybe going for that. In terms of what I think is more realistic and what will prevent another Ukraine war in the future, is going to be much more significant for the Russians. And I believe that's what the higher probability.
The alternative, if we take current lines, is perhaps on the condition that we go referendum region by region. Do you want to be Ukraine? Do you want to be neutral?
and I could see something like that too.
Do you want to be Russia?
I can see something like that too.
We would end up basically at the Medvedev, at what the 2014 election map, the sort of the Yanukovych Timoshenko map.
Yeah,
I mean, Kiev is an issue here, definitely.
This part
it straddles the Dnieper.
Yeah, I would say that
is it defensible?
I think that this half of the Kiev Oblast, if it was taken by the Russians, would achieve a similar situation as Germany during the Cold War, East and West. Like, you'd have like Russian occupation in this, occupation. Obviously, I'm just going to use that word in this portion of Kiev, which means that the whole of the oblast is not necessarily under Ukrainian control, and that would give the Russians, that sort of like ability to be like, if anything happens, we're just going to come through and take the rest of it. We're already in Kiev Oblast. We'll just enter the city and go. I can see that.
Annoyingly enough, that would end up with the motherland statue on the wrong side of the river.
Hey,
we'd have to stare at that trident eyesore for the rest of all eternity.
Pyotr is a NAFO shill. I don't think so. I've had a lot of good conversations with Pyotr. I think that he has opinions that disagree with a lot of people in this chat, but I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that everybody has decent ideas, and Pyotr is not an idiot for sure, even though I disagree with him on some things. Region to region, referenda need a troll option to join Belarus. All glory to the Union State, God Emperor Bakhto. I love you, clown. All right. Let's go to another article that I wanted to present. Let's see. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the Pope article that we just read. Again, another leaked story coming out after the Trump-Orban meeting in Mar-a-Lago. Trump was quoted as saying that, now we don't know if this is a certainty, that he will not give a penny to Ukraine if he wins. This is what Viktor Orban said, so we can probably take his word for it. I don't know why he would lie, but that is pretty damning for Ukraine, and it kind of it really does speak to the overall vigor of the U.S. administration, potentially the future U.S. administration's willingness to send aid to Ukraine, which, I don't know if this is necessarily even true, because I just see both parties as the war party now, but who knows? It is definitely an interesting headline, at least.
Our computations are based on the fact that Ukraine will get every bit of weaponry they ask for, every penny of our money that they have, and that they keep supporting it ad nauseum at this point. There's no point in hoping for something stopping, because if it doesn't, then you're fucked.
Yeah. Plan for the worst, pray for the best. All right.
Don't pray, kill.
Again, Ukraine, Russia war live. Kiev is planning a serious operation in Crimea as Zelensky slams Pope for white flag claim. So this was Bundanov came forward and was talking about another operation towards Crimea, which is their unbelievable obsession. They can't get past it. There's a land bridge now, so I'm sorry, but cutting off Crimea does not achieve anything. We saw you try to cut off Crimea last year. If he's talking about just going down there with a few special operations forces and boats, we've seen also how that ended last time. It was not pretty. You can find those pictures. Around 15 guys died, and on three separate boats for absolutely no reason. Special forces guys, valuable men, just wasted. So go for it, Bundanov. I don't know what you're hoping to achieve. Again, just PR victory after PR victory, trying to stay in the news. And then finally, for the last article we have,
is the Belgorod is the attempted Belgorod entry massacre going into this category of Budanov fails?
It's the exact same thing, yeah. And I was going to talk about that in just a second, but before that, obviously we have CNN now talking exclusive: Russia producing 3 times more artillery shells than the U.S. and Europe for Ukraine. Which just goes to show the difference in the military-industrial complex capacity in Russia compared to Europe and the West. And if the money doesn't pass for Ukraine, this industrial capability is not going to go up by a lot. If the money does pass, you could see 20 billion go into modernizing factories and getting everything up and running to a more of a war footing, I suppose, but still not. It will never, I don't think it will ever be as strong as the Russian ability to produce shells, at least currently. All right. Those articles are all from today, though. So just so everybody knows, that's all today's news. And then I wanted to take us over to my Twitter and go over some bookmarks. Okay. Yeah, here we go. All right, so here we have, obviously, the Pope wearing the Russian tricolor because he is a Russian agent now. Congratulations, by the way. I don't even think you guys pay attention to this Pope, do you? You have your own Pope, Russian Orthodox. So you got 2 popes now.
Oh, it's a patriarch.
A patriarch, sorry. It's the same thing, it's just with a different name. Sorry. If I offended anybody, I'm sorry. Oh, Challenger of the Swamp, what say you? Obviously, this is the problem that challengers have. They're
The
very, very,
freaking
very,
thing
very,
weighs
very heavy.
70 tons. What the hell
Yeah,
were they expecting it to
very,
do?
very, very heavy, and it got stuck in a modest Ukraine puddle. So the reason why you haven't seen any of these on the front line is one, this reason. Two, one got destroyed, and I think that they were basically forced to pull them back. And then three, from the reports I've received, I've read from Ukrainian sources, 6 of the 12 that were delivered didn't really work that great at all, and they just were never even put into service at all. And one has been destroyed. So 7 of the 12 are potentially not in operation, and the other ones are just sitting in Western Ukraine doing nothing. Here we have a Russian with a Leopard 2. I don't know where this is. It could be Zaporozhye or it could be Pobyeta. That's the 2 places
I
Ukraine
believe
has.
it is in the Avdiivka area.
It was in the Avdiivka area, or was it down near Pobyeta? Because I know that the Ukrainians lost 4 leopards around Pobyeta, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. Somewhere in the east, likely, a Russian posing with a captured leopard. Not.
I mean, it's 47th Assault Division, wherever the hell they've been recently.
They've been. The Robitny is where they lost, obviously, in the summer, and then they were around Avdiivka and Pobyeta, both of these. So here we have the Abrams. This one was not so much of a blowout panel situation. This was a complete cook. Not a good look for the Abrams, but what we all expected. So another Abrams lost for the little town of Berdichi, what I would consider a waste. Here we have some of the new Ukrainian fortified lines. If you notice, these are very, very tightly constructed defensive lines. One Fab 1500.
Right angles.
Yeah. Yeah, right angles are going to protect you from overpressure blast. Sure. First off, cluster munitions are going to destroy any personnel in these fortifications, except perhaps the underground fortifications that are interconnected in here. But those will be dealt with by heavy fabs. So these defensive lines are already looking not the most helpful for the Ukrainians. These are the ones that are currently being built up. Here we have an article by the New York Times talking about the F-16s, that Ukraine could deploy F-16s as soon as July, but only a few. Countries promised the fighter jets last year, but delivering them and training the pilots have proved complex. Ukraine may start with as few as 6 out of the 45 pledged. So already we're getting a pretty serious backtrack on when these are going to get here, how well they're going to perform, this, that, and the other. Here's Piotr. NAFA wannabe here. Interesting points on post-war. Thank you, Piotr. He is not a NAFA wannabe. NAFA.
He is Piotr.
NAFO are a bunch of very, very sad, pathetic, lonely, boomer-esque human beings.
Very ill.
Yeah, 40 to 60 is, I think, their average age. So you're just dealing with old menopausal women and dudes who still think Russia is the 1980s version of Russia, declining and very weak, or the Soviet Union rather. So that's who you're dealing with there. That's why Russia bad, West good, all the time. That's all they can say. Here we have confirmation of the death of one of the crews of the PAC-2 that was destroyed, thus confirming that the PAC-2 was destroyed. And we know that because the picture he took he took a picture of himself in front of the Patriot system, which can be seen here. Obviously, the exact same hook, exact same structure of the launch vehicle. A PAC-2 was destroyed. At least one PAC-2 launcher. It looked like possibly 2 with a command and control center as well. So big loss for Ukraine. They moved it forward to try to hold Avdiivka, and now we have confirmation of the loss. We also have satellite images from the United States. Hey, Atlas. Hey, stop snoring. Stop snoring. Thank you. Sorry, my bulldog is snoring. We have images from the United States of Russian shipping containers returning to North Korea after a month-long hiatus from doing so. They're saying these are empty shipping containers, but they could be full of stuff. Again, remember, Russia has now been sanctioned extensively and does not fear Western sanctions and now can trade with other sanctioned countries such as North Korea. I do believe that North Korea is going to be one of the biggest winners of the Ukraine conflict with their now open communications and trade with Russia in both, in everything, technology, agricultural goods. A lot of the 2020, or sorry, the early 2000s sort of stereotypes of North Korea, I think, are going to change dramatically. North Korea is going to become at least a kind of upgrading from a third world to a second world sort of situation where they're not and I put kind of Cuba in the same grouping as North Korea, where they've been sanctioned for so long that the whole country is kind of just being repressed. And so now North Korea is going to be able to trade with Russia and China much more openly with this sort of multipolar world opening up. We have another question. According to Pyotr, Ukrainians were supposed to take Crimea last summer. He's definitely a NAFO shill. Nope, he just, I don't know if he said that, but a lot of people believe that they were going to get there. I mean, he's in the same boat as probably most of the Ukrainian leadership, most of the NATO planners. And while he's also in with NAFO, that doesn't mean he's NAFO. And I'm not here to defend Pyotr. Pyotr can defend himself. But there was a lot of people that thought that this was going to be successful. There are fewer people who thought that Russia was going to be able to stop it. It's funny that you guys are arguing my super thanks, though. I love it. Yeah. All right. And then
Please continue doing so. We will support the argument that provides the largest sum.
Exactly. Macron delays Kiev visit amid tensions over Ukraine comments. So again, more backtracking from Macron. I don't ever expect to see French troops on the ground in Ukraine. I don't ever expect to see NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine. Some people are talking about it. I really hope the West doesn't get to that point. It looks like the U.S. is starting to back off. If Europe is going to do it, that's wild. I think the hope would be that Europe goes in, European country coalitions go in, and then the U.S. ends up coming in and supporting them because they can't let them lose, which is a horrible escalatory step and just kind of looking down into the abyss. But amid the tensions, he has delayed his trip to Ukraine. Always a good sign. Also, in the future, if you are the ruler of a country, if you're an elected official of a country, and you are in a do or die situation, please do not trust the French to come and save you. That is historically a horrible decision. Militarily, not the best decision. I would not put my hopes in a French rescue. Okay, that's just me personally for future reference.
They enjoy following the Pope's advice.
Yeah. This is kind of funny. Just because of what he's doing. I think he's a commander of the 3rd Azov Brigade. And then I said stumping a Heil Hitler salute. I mean, come on, dude. Why? He lost the only arm that can't destroy Ukraine's PR, right? That's the only arm he kept, was the one that can damage Ukraine's reputation, and he goes ahead and throws it up. This is what they're talking about when they talk about denazification. This, openly supporting this. And I'm not saying that this is the average Ukrainian. I'm not saying that, this is what Ukraine is. Ukraine is not just this Nazi state, but there is this undeniable Nazi problem, and it is being supported directly by the Ukrainian government, in that this brigade has been a part of Ukrainian formations since before 2022. And, this is not something new. This is the denazification that they're talking about. There is a culture of this in Ukraine. Now, like I said, even if it's only 2% of the population, this is still a big deal, because these people are fanatics. They are extremists, and they will go to means that, they might only be 2% of the population, but they perform and behave as though they're 15% of the population in terms of their ability to like rally and stuff like that. So you have to remember that they are a vocal minority, not just some minuscule representation.
They also have all the fucking guns.
Yes, and they also have a lot of money. So yeah, and then this is the last thing I wanted to talk about today. This was from the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade. God rest their souls. This brigade has been thrown into the absolute shittiest situations to be destroyed by the Russians over and over again. These are the Transcarpathians, the Hungarians. The reason why they talk about a systemic genocidal attitude towards this region of Ukraine, and why Russia makes it such a big deal to make sure that they get back to Hungary. I believe that's the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade, right? I'm not messing that up. There's so many.
I mean, we've seen the conscription numbers, and Transcarpathia has been rated
The
like
most.
10% above even Kharkov.
Yeah,
Which is second
even the
place.
pro-Russian areas. So this area is definitely picked on. But here we can say this is a quote from their commander. That his men have 12 howitzers, all of which use Soviet caliber shells. He says he would feel comfortable if he had 150 shells a day at his disposal, but often he now has 20 or 30. So you're talking about an entire brigade having 30 artillery shells to fire in a day. That is unbelievable, especially because these guys are always in the thick of it. They're always being reconstituted and sent back in. That is horrible. Obviously, this brigade is probably the least focused on, the least equipped. So this is probably not a general rule for the entire military structure. Obviously, some brigades are getting more ammunition than others, but 20 to 30 shells a day is nothing. That's nothing. That's horrific in terms of providing your men with any sort of fire support.
I think it might be less than nothing. Like, if you gave them nothing at all, they would at least stop having to pretend to be an artillery brigade.
Yeah, they could at least try to change their tactics and not be thinking that they might have artillery support, maybe. So, oh well. If you guys have some more questions,
And then there's the Belgorod shenanigan.
Oh yeah, we could talk about that. Let's see. The optimists for Ukraine are high on copium. Yep, that's David. David told me that the lines were stabilized, and then today all the lines moved. So classic
Then
funny
let's smoke
copium
that
hope boys.
Zelensky special blend.
Yeah. Yeah, so we had I'm not going to show any of the footage because I will get demonetized very quickly. But there was an attempt by the Ukrainian. It was Atman. Is that what they call it?
It's a military intelligence special unit. We would call it Vimpel or Alpha's counterterrorism, but it's one of the special intelligence units.
Yeah,
So
I posted
like
it.
FSB Spetsnaz type shit.
Yeah, so they're special forces, and they were basically grouped up in the Sumy region, right on the Kharkov border of the border of the Kharkov Oblast, to enter into Belgorod the way that they had done last year, I believe, in the summer of 2023, to go up there and take pictures, I guess, and claim that they're capturing pieces of Russia or whatever. Basically, what happened last time is the guys got bombed out and they left. You remember we saw that like Humvee that was in that crater. That was part of that operation. But this time the Russians spotted it. Their ISR is much stronger. It appears that Russia's response time to intelligence has increased dramatically, where now it's minutes for missile launches instead of hours. When the intelligence comes down, it seems like everything is running at a much quicker pace. And they destroyed, according to them, they killed and wounded 70 personnel. They destroyed 5 tanks, 3 self-propelled guns, one of which was a Caesar, which we do have confirmation of. And then
It was not a Caesar. It was actually something even rarer.
what was it?
It was a 2S-22 Bogdana, a
Okay.
Ukrainian domestic-made Soviet 152 on a
Does it
truck
look?
chassis.
Does it kind of look like a Caesar or an Archer?
It looks a bit like a Caesar or an Archer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a truck with a gun on it.
Okay, so that's where my brain was. Obviously, a more rare. It doesn't matter. A long range SPG is a long range self-propelled gun. They're all important. And another one is gone. So again, why are they doing this? There has to be some immense amount of pressure on themselves to make something happen here, and they're just going in these random directions, trying to make something happen and just losing very, very qualified men and a lot of very, very valuable equipment for absolutely nothing. And then I believe the next day, which was yesterday, they tried again to cross the border with infantry this time, just infantry, and they suffered casualties and retreated again. So there's that going on. Just more PR nonsense that doesn't really end up achieving anything. I mean, do you have anything to say about it, Alex? It's kind of just dumb. I don't know why they're doing it.
I mean, it stinks of MI6. They tend to be the ones that come up with all the weird shit that Ukraine tries and fails. It
Fails.
honestly, all it does is reinforce the fact that Kirill Budanov is a British asset.
Mm-hmm. Which I've said the entire time. He's I've said CIA, but he is the West's guy in the Ukrainian government, and that's why, I mean, he's in charge of the intelligence, so they have very, very close connections with that individual. I mean, I always say he's going to be the next president of Ukraine because usually I don't know if this is going to happen now because Western support does seem to be dropping off, but usually when the guy that they like stops being liked, like Zelensky is now, he will be replaced by the guy that they can trust, and I believe that's Bundanov, not Zaluzhny or anybody like that.
If not trust, and at the very least control.
If I was Zaluzhny, I'd never come back from Britain. I'd ride that ambassadorship. Even if I'm in
it really makes it seem more like he wanted the appointment. Because really, that's his ticket off the sinking ship.
And if that, we got reports. Was there reports? Was that Bellingcat story actually true?
That Zelensky fucking paid him. Apparently that was fake, and Hristo Grozov had the whole fucking meltdown over it. One of the Bellingcat editors had an entire meltdown over that news.
I would not be surprised. There's 2 ways that this could go. He could have left, kind of like Newland, which it's weird that you're seeing all these changes all starting.
I mean, did Newland leave or did she get left?
That's exactly right. It's like you have 2 options. Is it the leave option or is it the forced out option? Which one is better or worse for Ukraine? Because if Zaluzhny was forced out and bribed out with money, that spells disaster, I think personally. But it is what a opportunity, right? To go and be protected somewhere far away and not have to answer for the failure. I mean, perfect timing, dude. You got out just in the nick of time.
I mean, it's remarkable. Between the 2 current high generals that Ukraine has, one of them attended the same high command academy in Moscow that my father did, and the other one never really went to a high command school, and somehow the one that hasn't got a military education is the less stupid one.
Yeah. Somehow he managed.
It's a magical country full of the most incredible room temperature IQ individuals.
I don't know what their plan is. And even like their plans of entering Ukraine if Russia pushes for Kiev or Odessa or whatever. Like what do they think's going to happen? They don't have their economy on a war footing. Their domestic populations are not interested in going into a war with Russia. They have huge domestic issues already, like the farmer protests in France, the immigration issues, the collapse of their African colonies and the economic downfalls that come with that. You know, I don't know what the planning is, but to even think France could possibly make it to Ukraine in an organized fashion with military equipment, it seems kind of ridiculous to me. And then to
I
expect
mean,
that military equipment not to be struck once it's inside Ukraine is even crazier.
the whole brother people spiel we give for why we haven't bombed Ukraine into, fine dust doesn't apply to France.
Yeah.
It doesn't even apply to the fucking Baltics, and we used to be one country.
This guy is saying, Scott, what about NATO intervention? NATO has
They'll all
already
fucking
said that
die.
they're not going to intervene. The only intervention you might see is a coalition of willing participants of Europe, but I seriously doubt that, just because there's literally no win in that. Like, other than a complete Russian collapse, there's no win in that action, and I just don't see it. It's desperation is what you're seeing right now. They don't know what to do. They don't know what direction to go in. So Macron was just like, we'll send troops or something. And then his Ministry of Defense was like, yeah, we're not doing that. And all the French people were like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And then Macron was like, probably won't do that, but we're going to keep our options open, and my trip is delayed to Kiev. So it's just talk.
His whole, his army is pretty unhappy with him, and they've been for a while, ever since he gave all their bloody artillery away.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, what ammunition are they going to use? Like,
also, Macron's little trip, I'm sure, his little delay had nothing to do with Ms. Baerbock pretending to be followed around by a drone, and Mr. Mitsotakis getting to witness denazification in progress.
Wait, she said, what was that? Baerbock in Ukraine said she was getting followed around by a drone?
Oh, yeah. Have you not heard this?
Over Kiev?
No, Odessa.
Oh.
She went to Odessa and Nikolaev or something, and apparently she rescued the entire group by telling them all to run to the cars.
I thought that was the Greek.
No, Mitsotakis was there when we used a missile on a
the award ceremony
on a uncrewed vessel assembly or training point, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Odessa has become dangerous, and I'm sure that's where Macron would want to go. So.
Yeah. Oh well. I don't really see anything changing in terms of the West.
Nah.
Nah. Yeah.
It's a religion for them now, and it's very hard to get people to stop.
Yeah. It's not going to stop. It's going to get worse and worse. They're going to get more niche, but they're going to become more fanatical and just crazy. It's just, yeah. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to watch the meltdowns. It's going to be funny when the people that have been really, really gung ho start to admit that shit isn't going right. Like, I'm just waiting for it, dude. Because eventually there's going to start being excuses. There's going to start being reasons why. There's going to be finger pointing and blaming. There already is. Like Kherson.
It's going to be Donald. It's going to be Donald
Trump. That Kherson cat is literally saying that there needs to be a bucha in Hungary. Like, first off, wishing what you consider to happen in Bucha on anybody else in the world is such a horrible, horrible thing to say. Which is why she don't.
Who the fuck is going to perpetrate it? The Ukrainians? Do they want to lose Transcarpathia quicker than otherwise?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just desperation, and that they can't. If they admit that they were wrong, their entire worldview collapses. That's what happens. So it is what it is. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. That's an hour and 4 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alex, so much for coming on and talking. It's nice to have somebody to go back and forth with. If you guys like this show, please comment, like, and subscribe. It's the easiest way you can support me. Also, follow me on Twitter and Telegram. Kalibrated is my Telegram, and Aiden is my Twitter. Go check me out there. Thank you all so much. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you tomorrow for the next episode of Kalibrated Livestream. Goodbye, everyone.
Au revoir.